I think we're ready technology-wise. Is that correct? Okay. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to introduce the next presenter. A recent graduate of a library and information science program, right, from Dalhousie University, who is now managing a $2.4 million grant up at University of Prince Edward Island for Mark Leggett. Mark is the university librarian at Robertson Library, and what Kirsta is the repository manager there. And she's going to talk about the software solutions that have been developed at the University of Prince Edward Island using open source tools for supporting research projects there. And again, the idea is that the library has an important role in working up solutions for supporting research across campus, whether it's more in the hard sciences or in literary criticism or wherever. And so I would like to have you give your attention to Kirsta as she talks about some amazing technology, amazing solutions, and one more plug, we're actually working with some of the solutions that she's talking about today. We have two researchers in tech writing and linguistics who needed a place to put a corpus of student technical writing and wanting to use analytical tools to do some analysis on it. And so we are using them as guinea pigs to develop what is being called a virtual research environment that Kirsta is going to tell you a lot about. Thank you.
So I sound loud enough? Oh. So yeah, I'm Kirsta Stapelfeldt, and I'm a repository and project manager at the University of Prince Edward Island. And I'm very grateful to have been invited to UNT to participate in this symposium and provide an overview of the work we're doing to support our community. As a graduate student, I first heard about this project in the context of UPEI's innovation and great support in open source software. This has been covered by other people today, but open source software has a clear relationship with open access. To be licensed as open source, software has to permit access and use of the source code of an application. And just like open access, at least part of the motivation is the belief that making information available improves things. So in this case, it's the code itself. Open code benefits from the contributions of a wide group of programmers, as well as the absence of barriers to competition, which this allows for things like greater interoperability between applications. So in the following half hour, I'd like to talk to you about our project and really to talk about the Islandora software that we use to build that project, as well as the teams and infrastructure we've created to support the work. And following that, I'd be happy to answer any questions I can. Full disclosure, I have never taken a computer science class. My background is in English and history. If you ask me a question about Java classes, Java messaging services, what we're doing with Python, I'll have to call back to the island to get that answer for you. So first, the project. Originally coined the DiscoverySpace project, the initial vision was to create customized virtual research environments, or VREs, to support research. UPEI wanted to enable collaboration and serve researchers, and wanted to store and disseminate data sets and research outputs responsibly. The scope has grown alongside the system, so since we began developing the Islandora software in 2008, UPEI has acquired additional staff and funds to develop the system. So last year I was hired, as Bill mentioned, on a $2.3 million grant that will develop the project until March of 2013. But we estimate that we've received research and other grants of about $750,000, and more is coming in all the time. So for example, we're working on a mobile application interface for our collections, and we're leveraging 2 SSHRC grants to do that, as well as a rural broadband fund. So we're getting the money together and finding those synergies in the projects to try and move this thing forward. We're also going after our Office of Research and Development, trying to get more of those indirect costs of research funds because the service has become so useful. Currently, we think of the VRE service as supporting 3 distinct but overlapping landscapes. First, the research landscape, which is still our most dominant area. And in this landscape, we work with researchers to support their work and store their research outputs. So for example, we might help someone do some gene sequencing and then store the information for them so they can retrieve it and manipulate it and let other people have access to it and that kind of a thing. We also sort of and I think unintentionally became involved in this administrative landscape. So we support different administrative units at our university. We support their committee work and we store their documents. Most recently, we've built a large document management system for our accounting department, which allows for workflow management with invoices and purchase orders, as well as archival storage of documents in keeping with new legislative requirements. Finally, we think of ourselves involved in the learning landscape. So not only do we store things like SCORM objects, we aim to make them embeddable in other contexts, and we try to make this media interactive. So for an example, a professor at our veterinary school might ingest a microscopy image into the system and then solicit feedback from their students about what the image reveals. I guess what we've discovered is that the system we developed really supports any number of digital asset requirements and workflows, and it's been really, really popular. In fact, the uptake is so pronounced that we find it difficult to handle the volume of requests. There are currently over 120 VREs, so there's about 5,000 students at my school. So if you can imagine the faculty that would support that, that's 120, and the number continues to grow, so we get new requests all the time. About 70 of the VREs are research-focused, 20 are digital collections, and 20 are admin-focused. The rest are test sites or general websites that do things like help facilitate registration for conferences. We were the first people to get PayPal working at the university for some reason, so we just wound up being the PayPal people. So why does everyone want the service? And the simple answer, I think, is that it's filling a major vacuum. Our communities want good quality, customized digital tools, and they want their data to be secure and well organized. Our librarians have the knowledge of information services and the history with faculty members to understand what that needs to look like, and Islandora software is the paint box that helps that happen. Moreover, because the software is open, each faculty member or administrative unit that participates in the service by providing funding or person hours towards the system pays forward new features and a more refined system, increasing the attractiveness for others. And in fact, what we find is when we're talking to research faculty, that makes sense to them. They're okay with that pass the hat. I mean, it's hard to base a budget on it, but it makes sense to them to say, I will pay for developer time to use this, and I know that another researcher will benefit from that tool. It just doesn't seem to be a problem for people. So I'd like to show you a few of our sites to put my comments into context, and I thought a lot about what you might want to look at here and decided to show you some of our most popular features. I'd be happy to provide more context for any of these projects during the question and answer period or to locate information if I don't have it to hand. This is our herbarium specimen collection. From this view, objects held in the repository are georeferenced using location information in the metadata record, and a user selects one of the icons here and can navigate directly to the digital asset. Our viewer provides a tiled, zoomable interface to view the object in more detail, and if you are logged into the system as an administrator, you can view a detailed list of the parts of the digital object, and here these include, where are we here? Maybe I lost my detailed view. Yeah, we're onto the metadata here, so I may have lost a screenshot. It'll show up later, I have a feeling. So what I've done here is I've clicked the description tag to take you to the Darwin core record, and if you're an administrator, then you can go in and you can edit that. So this is the administrator's view of the metadata associated with the record, so you can go in and change any field that you need to there. These basic search and discovery functions are often supplemented by other features in more explicit lab-focused VREs. So this is our Marine Natural Products Lab VRE. And if you log in here, we're in the logged in view here, this group is storing a lot of different type of data, as well as using the site to promote research and communicate with their collaborators. So a VRE can also facilitate the day-to-day activities of a lab, including job announcements and lab equipment booking. So one of our VREs is part of a research grant that was received by 4 or 5 different labs all working together. And one of the big things that they found so useful, and it's a silly thing that's kind of easy to build, was just a way for them to decide who was going to use the equipment when. Things like calendars. People really like that. What I really wanted to point out here, though, is our faceted search capabilities. So here you can see I'm able to perform targeted or general searches. So if I were to pull down this, you would get all of our different metadata fields, so you could target a field. If you perform a search, you can go to a list of results here. This hyperlink on the top would take you to the actual object itself, and here you can see the number of objects under different categories, and people have become really used to faceting, right? You know, our Amazon shopping and things like this, so this is very, very popular. People really like doing this. In another one of our sites where we have, oh yeah, here we are. I wanted to show you the facets a little bit more closely. Here's another one of these data sites, and the only reason I want to point this up, this is a similar view where someone's performed a targeted search on, these are milk samples associated with cows, because it's Prince Edward Island, and that's a lot of what happens, is agriculture and aquaculture research. There's a little tiny icon on the top there. That's an export to CSV button. So what we do is we make it so you can do a Solr search, you bring back all this data, you narrow down your data set using the facets, and then you export it. And people love that because then they can take it into their desktop application and do things with it. Of course, what we're working on right now, and we have the money to, and we're moving towards it, is integration with the open source R statistics package. So the idea is that that's going to start working with some of our other underlying applications. And so ideally what will happen is you'll get this data set and then you'll crunch it right in the interface and you'll be able to produce graphs and things like that. This is our map collection, and I pointed out because we have a number of these interactive features that we've built into our collections and VREs. And one of these things here that I really like, it's map overlays. So what we do is we pin a historical map to a Google map. And the work is manual in this case, but it doesn't take that long to do, and we have a workflow for doing it. And what you can do if you're a researcher, I mean, they have access to these maps that they just wouldn't have had access to before because they're enormous. And you can take a look at this map and know immediately how your city's changed. And what's most exciting about these types of features is the way they extend the value of digital assets beyond just stewardship and access. These types of features allow for new ways of looking at data and lead to better understandings of the meaning of data assets. Another feature that is getting a lot of attention lately, especially from the digital humanities, is our text encoding initiative, or TEI editor, which you can see in our Island Lives book collection. So TEI, for those of you who don't know, is a standard for the production of scholarly electronic texts. So if you're an administrator, so I'm logged in as an administrator, the only real difference here is I have an edit tab available to me. That's the edit button right there. This is our book viewer, which displays images of book pages, and they've also been put through an optical character recognition process that makes them full text searchable. And the workflow that we use here also extracts TEI entities from the text automatically, but you can go in as a user and you can add and edit tags. So let me see if I have another. That's my little edit tool that would open it up, and you can see here if I wanted to, I could insert one of these different elements into the text, and that would automatically TEI encode that. We have a beta image annotation tool that we're working on right now. We have a pretty good relationship with our computer science department, so it started off as a fourth-year project, and we're working on making it a little bit more robust. And we think it's going to work really, really well with this. So you have things like a handwritten poem, or manuscript, and someone can go in and annotate that image. So we're pretty excited about that. We recently partnered with the Editing Modernism in Canada project to work on developing some of these features together to a full-fledged solution for the production of digital editions. We've also gotten audio and video file support going, and I'm showing you our collections in a lot of cases. I'll say this again in a second because, well, here, I'll point it out. This is, we could use video or audio. It's the same sort of system that underlies it. And you can see here, you can listen to the video. This is our Island Voices project. It's Dutch Thompson's interviews with people from our community. They're great. And what you can see here is you get an overview of the interview. You can play it. And then down here, some very nice interns went through and annotated and time-coded this. So that's all searchable. So you can get it hit in a search, go there, and then navigate directly to the point in the audio file where that was discussed. So you can imagine how useful this is for social science researchers handling interview data. We have a little bit of this going, but I think for obvious reasons I couldn't show any of that off. So the collections, though, are safe. The flexibility of our system really means that you can arrange and present data to groups in a really customized way. Although the same repository system underlies all of our projects, each site can be configured to meet the culture needs and workflow of a particular group. And this user-focused approach is a major selling point. The system grows as projects and groups grow. The Atlantic Climate Change Adaptation site that is currently on the screen behind me is in kind of an early stage of development. So the researchers are putting up initial project proposals and plans, and we're going to supplement them later on with their climate data and reports as that stuff rolls in and we get the formats going and build the system around it. So here you see a list of projects from one of the provinces, and it kind of gives you a sense of the kind of stuff we'll be storing later on. But we don't have to build it all in one foul swoop. You know, it's an iterative process. We can put one of these things up quickly at the very beginning of a project, and then we can build it as the project progresses. This is the last one I'm going to show you, I promise. But given the topic of today's symposium, I thought I'd be remiss if I didn't show you our institutional repository proper, where we house our faculty research papers. However, I should point out that it is mid-makeover. You can see that all the faculty publications are browsable by name here and also by department, and papers are also full-text searchable. We encourage faculty deposits, but we want our site to be a useful showcase and entry point to our faculty work, even when there is no open access to the article available. So we use the Coins Cuffs Godot stack. So if you're a visitor and the article's not there, you can look at your own library holdings. It'll try and pick that up and tell you whether or not you have access to the article somewhere else. So here it's prompting me and it's saying, there's not a copy here, but go and check at UPEI and see if you have full access. So we create the citation records using RefWorks and exporting. We export a big RefWorks XML stream, we ingest it, and bang, we have 500 records. Well, we're not that prolific, but we have a lot of records in the system, and then we send the faculty member an email and we say, please go and put a copy of your article up there. When they view their citation, they're presented with just-in-time information from Sherpa Romeo. So this is a real-time lookup. So they go in, and then it goes out to Sherpa Romeo, and it comes back, and it says, this is what you're allowed to put in the repository. Other things we've done to make it easier for faculty to deposit is to we accept any kind of document. So you can upload a Word document. Anything that OpenOffice could convert to PDF, which is quite a lot, because we run a headless version of OpenOffice right on the server, and then it goes out and turns it into a PDF and indexes it. We don't have an open access policy at UPEI, but we do try to get people to contribute and share their data. However, we don't require it. Our system facilitates mixed approaches to access, but we found that when you make information more collaborative, you immediately make it more open. It kind of breaks down one of those initial barriers. And when we give that power to faculty members, we find that more often than not, they do choose to make things open. So hopefully that gives you some sense of what we're doing, and now I'd like to talk a little bit about how we're doing it. So I'd like to talk about the Islandora software. And you might think of Islandora as the glue between a number of open source applications. We often refer to it as an ecosystem. The core elements or ingredients in that ecosystem are Fedora and Drupal, and I'd like to explain what those applications bring to the table. So Fedora Commons, which is not the Fedora operating system, people make that mistake when they come and interview with us. They say, oh, I need to know about Fedora, the operating system. We're like, nope, wrong one. It stands for Flexible Extensible Digital Object Repository Architecture, and it started being developed about 15 years ago at Cornell University as an architecture for storing, managing, and accessing digital content. And it's continuing to be developed, and in their own words, Fedora defines a set of abstractions for expressing digital objects, asserting relationships among digital objects, and linking behaviors and services to digital objects. As this indicates, Fedora is a bunch of objects. I'm not going to show this slide to our systems manager because it would make him crazy. But I think, moreover, these objects are pretty simple, really. They're just text, a series of XML documents called data streams that together form Foxaml, which is Fedora Object XML. These XML streams answer questions about an object, like what it is, who should see it, how it should be displayed, metadata associated with the object, and et cetera. And this is all really flexible. You can use any kind of metadata schema. You can store any kind of object. One particularly exciting thing, and you talked about this a little bit today, is the use of RDF, or Resource Description Framework, by Fedora. This is manifested in rels-ext or rels-int data streams. And the RDF data stream basically tells an object what its relationship is with other objects. It's how Fedora does things like create a collection. I think you said it perfectly today with the triples, talking about I am a member of this collection, I have this relationship with, An RDF statement gets parsed into triples, which we heard about, and they're stored in a triple store, Mulgera in the case of Fedora, which can then be queried using querying tools like SPO, Sparkle, and ITQL. This type of relationships indexing is behind what's called semantic data modeling. And if that doesn't make much sense to you, then perhaps you have heard of the semantic web, or what people are calling Web 3.0, and that's exciting, right? It's another number higher. So Fedora provides semantic support for any digital object and metadata schema with flexible object and content modeling, and many mechanisms for preservation and data integrity, including versioning, checksum, and an audit trail. However, while Fedora is the underlying architecture for a best practices digital repository, it is not a complete management, indexing, discovery, and delivery application. Enter Drupal. Who's used Drupal? Yeah, some Drupalers, lots of Drupalers in the room, so preaching to the choir. It is a very popular content management system, commonly credited as the platform for between 1.5% and 2% of all websites online. And I think that's partly because Drupal is kind of like the guitar, so you can learn to play a Dylan song in an afternoon, but it takes a lifetime to master the instrument. I started playing with Drupal in 2005, and I feel like I'm always learning something new. Last week, there were 9,732 modules on Drupal.org and over 1,000 themes. Modules make it easy to extend the functions of Drupal to include things like rate user content, comments and forums, and collaboratively edited content. So for example, here's a learning object repository that we built that previews SCORM objects, and then it allows users to rate them down here. So that's been proven to help people, especially in a learning object repository, understand where they want to go, what they want to download. So even the White House likes Drupal. The White House site and both the White House site and the Economist website are built using Drupal. So Drupal gives us what Fedora can't, that user-friendly, customizable, and attractive interface, and that's the Web 2.0 part of the equation. As far as Drupal knows, Islandora is one of its modules. It's more than that, but that's kind of, Drupal is the thing that you interact with the most, and if you have the other pieces that are there, then you go in and it looks like a lot of other modules in Drupal. So Drupal and Fedora are the start but not the end of the delicious Islandora sandwich. We integrate with other applications. I made this slide when I was hungry. This is our core stack. So we use Solar Lucene to support our faceted searching. We use Chitoka, which is an image server that provides compression and region extraction to do things like make our viewer zoomable. And we use Abby as our optical character recognition, or OCR software. It's good software, but it's not open source software, so we want to move away from it. There are plans right now to integrate with OCR Opus or Ocropus, and we're really eager to get a look at the great work that's been done by UNT to integrate the Islandora system with Ocropus. If you want a closer look at this diagram, I brought a few hard copies of our guide. I was going to bring one up with me, but I don't think I did. So I have a book here. Thank you very much. Oh, and that was that down there. We have some DVDs here as well. That DVD has a virtual machine. Islandora doesn't have that point-and-click install, but we do have a virtual machine that you can put on your computer. We've given you VirtualBox on the same disk and a little guide there. So if you're interested and you want to get the VM and you don't feel like waiting for it to download from our website, come and see me and I can get you a copy or burn you a copy off. And again, I can go through this in more detail to the extent that I understand what's going on. I mean, I've got the big picture, but there's a lot of bits and pieces. So via our Islandora rule engine, which also started off as a computer science project, and the Java messaging system, we can allow the applications in our system to work together in automated ways, and the result is really our ecosystem. Distributed applications that keep the Fedora repository updated and allow for the discovery, management, and updating of repository objects. This picture behind me is a workflow diagram showing the behind-the-scenes steps that go into the creation of a digital book in our Island Lives collection. And these slides, I think they're going to be available online, is that right? So you can take a look there. We feel this distributed application framework is very powerful. I think a lot of people have learned that. Workflow functions like OCR and technical metadata extraction can be done entirely outside of Fedora and then pushed to Fedora. And these external services can also be upgraded or replaced with minimal impact on Fedora. So I just wanted to show you what this looks like to an administrator. Here are the Islandora modules. Like I said, this is how you would interact with the system, especially as an administrator. The digital repository module allows for the management and display of Fedora digital objects. Fedora attach here just means that when you make a simple page attachment in Drupal, it ingests it directly into the repository. And the Fedora image API allows for thumbnails and other web derivatives to be automatically created from an ingested archival format, such as a TIFF. The Islandora book module here is one of our solution packs. So solution packs are modules that are designed to allow users to work with specific types of content, like books or newspapers or audio-video data, specimen data, things like that. So we kind of re-architected, thank you, we kind of re-architected how we were doing that. And I went on to, I'm going to speed up here a little bit. This is the slide I was missing earlier, the herbarium slide. These are the basic management functions. So if you're in the system, Here are my data streams. I could look at them. I could download them. Here I can replace them or I can purge them all together, add new data streams. So it's a little bit laborious to just add data streams, but you can do a lot of that right in the interface. And this is our new content modeling and collections building interface that we're really excited about. Here you can see I'm adding a new collection model. You need to know some Fedora. You need to kind of understand conceptually how that's working in order for this to seem awesome to you. But it is awesome. It does make things much easier. I think for those of you who've ever used the Fedora admin client, web client, I think this is a step up. And I did that just by pressing the little plus button on the right-hand side there. And just very quickly, I'm going to talk to you about our management. These are the teams that are involved in managing the software. So we have a management group that is largely librarians. We have a tech group and systems group. So people who are managing our servers and the people who are managing some of the software on the servers. I guess it's sort of the same thing. They kind of bleed together. Anyways, we meet with them every week. We have the developers in the external coding community that we're meeting with. So it's increasingly an open source project that's being picked up outside the university. We also deal with the university administration, which can be good and bad, but we negotiate a lot of things with them. And increasingly, we work with Discovery Garden Incorporated, and I'll just want to make sure I get this in here. Discovery Garden is Mark Leggett, so he's our university librarian and the project lead on this project. Many of you might have heard him talk because he goes to every conference. He's only not here because he's at another one. This is his company, so they're selling services around the software. And they have a share agreement with UPEI. So again, that whole marketing thing, some of the money comes back to the university that they make, and they're on fire. They're doing really well. They have lots of sales, and they're hiring lots of coders. And they've really pushed our project forward. So we're seeing the code move really, really quickly, and the code's staying open. This is it's all services based. I was going to talk a little bit about how we manage our servers. I had this great potato repository slide, but I think I'm going to have to wrap it up because I'm just at the end here of my time. I'll just mention briefly here that this is, I think, unlike any other work environment I could have gone into as a new librarian. It's non-hierarchical. It's very lateral management. It always feels like it's 2 minutes before press time. We meet a lot. We talk a lot. Everyone's on Skype constantly. People will be having interesting conflict. You see librarians and developers working together, and they're drawing pictures, and they're in a meeting together, and everyone calls acronym on everyone else. So the developers are talking, and they say something, and the librarians go acronym, and of course they say the same thing right back at us. So Mark calls it our culture of risk and excellence that we're moving kind of further. We're doing something a little bit new, and we're doing it as well as we can. That's about as fast as I can wrap that up. But I would be happy to answer any questions if you have questions about what we're doing.
Any questions? Martin.
So part of our focus here is to try to model, how to support these kind of things. Do you have any advice, sort of insights into how to, sort of what percentage of your overall staff at the library are devoted to this, how Mark thinks of it, how you think of it in going forward, and what you would encourage other libraries that want to go, into some of these areas to think about in sort of provisioning this kind of effort?
I'd say 80% of our faculty librarians are involved to some capacity with the project. Not all of them are doing configuration of it in a system. Every single person we've got that's working in systems is doing this, as well as the open source ILS, as well as keeping up with our open conference systems and open journal systems. And we have a lot going on. So most people have a lot of balls in the air, are juggling quite a bit. Mark started, I believe, by having one of the people that worked in the circulation desk retired, and he took the money and he hired a programmer instead, and that sort of started it. He found a small pot of money and then was able to keep on leveraging that and finding synergies to kind of grow it and grow our staff. And the other thing I think that was really important was creating those new teams, so getting librarians, using the knowledge that librarians have of their faculty, of their subjects, of what an ideal interface would look like and what faculty members would want, and then leveraging that and saying, okay, well, how do we build a system that they're really going to enjoy? And there's a lot of knowledge that librarians have that they can bring to this. So it's a natural progression. I mean, this is still librarians cataloging and thinking about metadata. They're just doing it in a different place, you know. Finding those new roles and being comfortable with those new roles, being happy to say, okay, we're going to do things differently than we've done them before.
So 2 follow-on questions. You've gotten a significant amount of money from grant sources,
Yes.
which is great. So the first question is, what percentage of the folks that actually support or develop the Islandora environment, I guess, are supported by the grant funding as opposed to, you know, hard funding, I guess, from the university?
Operational funding, so we have one endowment grant that's split and pays for half of 2 positions. The other half of those positions are paid for by soft money, and that's because that's how HR would recognize the positions, because it gives us a little bit of, not really operational funding, but kind of operational funding. A lot of our indirect cost of research funding goes into that area as well. You know, it's hard to say. We use Islandora for everything. When Mark canceled our Web of Science subscription and then decided to take the money and use it to try and take our Web of Science data and build something new with that, what is that part of the project, and where, you know what I mean? We are pushing a lot of definitions, at least according to all of the administrative departments I talk to all the time.
And last question, did you shut down any older services or systems to support this effort?
No, I don't know what the catalog was before we moved to an open source catalog, but I think that as soon as we started doing this type of work, we were doing it with Fedora and we were doing it with Drupal. So.
My blind side. Just building on enjoyment of the system, and also an aside you made about the silly aspect of, they found out where they could communicate about who could use the equipment and stuff like that. Triggered a memory of at our university, we have a project in physics where we import huge data sets from Brookhaven, from their cyclotrons or accelerators, and then we farm that out to other universities in Texas in chunks to analyze. And one of the byproducts of this program was that the physicists found that in having to communicate with each other, at least for technical matters of, did the file arrive, and how do I adjust this and so on, they started talking to each other. This is a big deal for these people. They started communicating with each other and sharing all kinds of other things, and this promoted, actually, it greased the wheels in a lot of other ways, and it actually improved the performance of the project. And so this is terribly unquantifiable and horrific to librarians, but there is an emergent, it's kind of like an emergent property of some of these electronic media that in fact, in the end, enhances the information quality. I don't know how you would research that or how you would capture that or what you would do with that, but so I guess it isn't a question. But if you have any reaction, by all means.
It's very interesting. I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think going back to what you can do to promote something like this happening in your library is Mark has been a whiz at finding these places where we can be efficient, getting people together that don't normally talk to each other. And yeah, the quality of the research, I think, improves, but also little things like we've got a high-performance computing unit that we bought. It's 10 nodes, and that's really good for a school of our size. And they're putting it together as we speak right now, and that came because Mark was able to go out and say, you have this much money, you have this much money, you have this much money. You're tired of paying $10,000 every time you need to have something processed, so why not put your money together and buy a real piece of hardware and build real infrastructure at our institution to help you do this work. So I think, I'm not surprised, but I think it's one of those things that makes my job really exciting. Anybody else?
I want to make a comment. Thank you, Kirsta. I think what's so exciting, to me anyway, is, again, the role of the library leading campus activities. And I see that happening here and emerging here, and I think we have some really good models out there to look at, and a lot of lessons that we can learn, including the enthusiasm, okay? Which I think we have a lot of, and it's just that sometimes staff resources aren't enough to do all the things that we want, and trying to leverage cooperation and collaboration, and knowing the importance of serving the faculty and taking things to them and not asking them. I mean, one of the first times I saw Mark introduce these ideas was it was back 6 years ago, 5 years ago. We were in Victoria, and his slide, or his presentation was on repositories. And at that point, you know, everybody had built repositories and had no content. And so his images were of cemeteries and other sort of dead receptacles, right? And in part because we were assuming that academics were going to change their behavior to serve our repositories, like put stuff in. And so with this, it's like you're giving value to the researchers, right? You're supporting activities, right? And at the same time, getting what the library needs, which is some decently curated data and organized information. So I think just some really interesting models. So thank you for sharing this with us.
My one final plug, if I could do it, Mark will get mad at me if I don't here. And it would be nice to see any of you who wanted to come up to PEI and visit us. This summer we're running our second Islandora camp between July 20th and July 22nd. And we also have our Red Island Repository Institute, and we're having that in September this year, and we're having it at Dalve by the Sea, which is a seaside resort and very beautiful. So there will be lots of great food and fun, and it would be nice to see you. Go to islandora.ca if you want to learn a bit more about the project or view some more current installations. And of course, at any time, if you want to contact me, I don't know if I can, you can sort of see there at the beginning my email address with my super easy to spell last name is right there. Stapelfeldt@upei.ca. It would be great to hear from any of you who want to talk about this. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, we're scheduled for a 15-minute break, and we will resume exactly at 3:15, if not a few minutes before, if you're ready. Okay, thank you.